Hello, and welcome to this week's special bonus episode. As we have discussed previously, Hebrew, the language of the Old Testament, much like Greek, the language of the New Testament, is an image-based language. It paints an incredibly vivid and detailed picture, one that English simply fails to capture. It often requires entire paragraphs of English in order to convey the full idea that is captured and painted by a single Hebrew word. As I have been studying and translating the Hebrew words in the Psalms as part of my own attempt at a paraphrase translation hybrid, I have been fascinated and captivated by the richness of what truly lies in these texts. And so I have decided to share some of what I have found there, one digestible piece at a time. For the last few weeks, we have talked about love, hope, and freedom. In prior discussions, we have also talked about truth, justice, and charity. Now we are going to begin looking at the place where these ideas converge, and we are going to discuss the most effective way to navigate the forks in the road that emerge after that point. The first thing we should recognize is that all of these ideas are virtues. Love is good. Compassion is good. Hope is good. Freedom is good. Truth is good. Justice is also good. And charity is, of course, good as well. Right up until the moment that you use any of them in bad or unproductive ways. If your idea of loving someone involves you actively enabling them to harm themselves, then love as you define it, and as you are using it in that distorted way and in that particular set of circumstances, just became a harmful thing, which is definitionally not a force for good anymore, and therefore not a virtue. So love is no longer a virtue when it is being misused in a way that causes harm. Real love in that set of circumstances is going to look different than it might in a different set of circumstances. In that difficult set of circumstances, real love may appear harsher than the form of love that you would express to a child who has just skinned their knee or bumped their head. But the harder form of love is no less love than the tender form is. And it is often much, much harder to live out. If your idea of compassion is based on the idea that you are capable of functioning as a responsible adult with reason and morality, but others are not, so you will not only fill up your space and your role, but you will also take over theirs. You will hijack their place in this world and rob them of their own dignity and an opportunity to grow larger themselves to fill their own role, all so that you can congratulate yourself on being such a big, strong Superman that you are successfully carrying the weight of two instead of one. That version of compassion is really just a mask for a parasitic self-aggrandizement. And in that case, compassion has become a vice that is toxic to the very people that you are theoretically trying to help. At that point, your use of compassion is definitionally not a force for good anymore. If your support of freedom lead you towards providing the kind of freedom that you or other individuals end up using to truly victimize the people around you, then that use of freedom just came at the cost of the victim's freedom. That irresponsible abuse of the freedom that has been entrusted to you by your neighbors is definitionally not a force for good anymore, because abuse is not good. If hope becomes an excuse for lying to people, telling them things that they want to hear, but things that are not true, and doing so in the name of giving them hope, that is definitionally not a force for good anymore. If truth becomes a weaponized club that you use to beat people black and blue, rather than being an illuminating light that exposes reality, then that is definitionally not a force for good anymore. If justice becomes the excuse for never having any grace or showing any mercy, to never ever be understanding or anything less than maximally harsh, then that is not good. If charity doesn't elevate the recipient, but rather strips people of future self-sufficiency and relegates them to the role of being a permanent dependent, then it is not good. The point of all of this is that any virtue, a true virtue, when it is used in extremes, when it is used in every situation, no matter how different those situations are, as though this virtue is the one-size-fits-all answer to every problem that will ever be posed anywhere in the world. Or when a virtue is used in any inappropriate or especially harmful way, it definitionally ceases to be a virtue in that set of distorted circumstances. On a freezing night, fire is life-savingly good, right up until the moment that it burns your house down. Life is complicated. Some situations call for mercy, and some situations call for justice. Others call for a mix of the two, and not necessarily in equal measures. Some situations call for hope, and others call for the reality of truth, and some call for a mix of both. Some situations call for the charity of a helping hand up. Others call for the freedom of staying out of people's way. And some call for a mix of the two. If you cannot tell the difference between those situations, whether it is because you want easy answers that fit every question, instead of shouldering the difficult task of evaluating these situations as they arise, or whether your inability to distinguish the right thing to do is because you are facing a truly complex case, either way, if you cannot tell the difference between a situation where you should act one way and when to act another way, then the odds are that you are going to cause more damage than improvements in this life. Blundering around in the dark with a hammer rarely results in you constructing a house that is safe to live in. So this week, we are going to begin to talk about the arsenal of tools that we are supposed to use to navigate life's complex situations. Each tool allows you to accomplish different tasks, and each tool has its specific use. You do not use a hammer to fix a broken toilet, and you do not use a saw to do electrical work. That doesn't mean that a saw or a hammer are bad tools. They are very useful tools. They are just not appropriate tools for those projects. But with a toolbox that is full of useful choices, and having learned the lessons on how to properly use each one, you have quite a variety of handy options at your disposal. Options with actual utility. So, the first tool that is necessary for constructing anything solid is knowledge. The Hebrew word for knowledge is da'at, and it is based on the root word yada, which is the word for know or knew. This word is deceptive to English ears because it is not really describing having a memorized list of facts at your disposal, which is basically our definition of knowledge. Da'at is not something that you generally get in a college course, although a true teacher can and should impart da'at to their students, but they rarely do in our education system, as opposed to those of the ancient world. Da'at is about you fully comprehending something. It is not about you parroting someone else's knowledge. Da'at is experiential knowledge. It is first-hand awareness. It is functional comprehension. This is why you will often see the word knew used in some seemingly strange ways in the Bible. They seem far less strange when you understand what knowing is. For example, when you read that Adam knew Yada, his wife Eve, and she conceived a son and called him Cain, you can safely assume that Adam did not make Cain by studying really hard, taking a test, and getting a passing grade. When Adam knew Eve, that is to say that he fully experienced her. Experience is an indispensable asset in this life, but only if you come to understand the things that you experience. Otherwise, it is just another tool that you do not know how to use, because you don't even know what it was designed for. For you, like Ariel in The Little Mermaid, knowledge is a dingle hopper. So skill is key when it comes to successfully using something. And that brings us to our next word. The Hebrew word for wisdom is chokmah. Chokmah is a pretty cool word. Ma means what? And chok means potential or power. So chokmah is about the power of inquiry. It is based on the premise of questioning everything, but with a purpose. You are trying to uncover the useful applications that would come from finding an actual answer to your question. Questions that do not really seek any answers are not wise. They are childish. Like your kid in the back seat asking, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" Why? 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 Questions that do not accept a solid answer, just because it is more fun to knock the tower down than it is to construct one themselves, are also childish and destructive. They are not intelligent or impressive. Once again, virtue isn't simple, and aping it isn't the same thing as having it. The proof is in the pudding. The virtuous value is in what it produces. Do your questions produce solid answers, or just a lot of cynicism, distrust, and destruction? Because wisdom is constructive in its nature, not destructive. That brings us to the other half of what wisdom is. Chokmah is also strongly linked to artistic skill. So it conveys the idea of being trained in the art of questioning and having the skill to construct something with the answers that you dug for. In the ancient world, skilled craftsmen who could weave, engrave, or design were described as having chokmah, because chokmah, above all, is skill. This is the word that is used to describe a technical expertise, whether that expertise be as an artist, as a tailor, or as a sailor. This is why you often see knowledge, experience, and wisdom, skill, referred to as twin virtues, a matched set. Knowledge is only valuable when you know what to do with it. Chokmah is about producing something through your questioning, not just knocking everything down. Now, yes, it is true that sometimes you have to knock things down in order to build something better. But if all you do is knock things down, including the things that shouldn't have been knocked down, and you never get around to the building anything better part, then you have not even begun to approach what it means to embody chokmah. I'm sorry, but in that case, you are not even on the first step yet. The wisdom of chokmah is a combination of being skilled in your probing curiosity, the probing part being key, so that you discover what is solid and what is not, and then using what is solid to construct something solid and beneficial. Anything less than that does not qualify as being wise. Chokmah is about digging for insights, recognizing them when you strike them instead of destroying them, and most of all, it is about utilizing them. Wisdom is the skillful application of your curious exploration of the possibilities, because you are sincerely curious about the potential power in those possibilities. Chokmah is based on having an earnest questioning, a curiosity that diligently explores the possibilities for actual answers and conclusions, so that the effortful labors to unearth useful insights can be harnessed, and those treasures that they unearth will result in practical applications, the kind that form the basis of skillful living. Living with skill, the artistic skill of a constructing craftsman, is chokmah. But there is a second, rarer. Not rare, but definitely rarer Hebrew word for wisdom. Tushaya. Tushaya is another rich and multifaceted word that describes sound wisdom, helpful insights, and enduring success. This is wisdom with a substance to it. Chokmah is a broader idea. Tushaya is specific. It refers to the type of chokmah that produces tangible results. Tushaya is defined by its primary trait of being functional, not just insightful. Think of the theoretical multiverse as an example. Even if this theory is true, and that is a massive if, what is the utility of this insight? There is absolutely none. It changes nothing. It teaches us nothing, at least nothing useful. It has no applications at all. It's just an interesting theory, one that you cannot even prove or disprove. It makes for hours of debate that get nowhere. It's just meaningless small talk for intellectuals. Tushaya, on the other hand, is an effective working wisdom. It has outcomes. It produces success and stability. This is a pass-fail kind of wisdom. Did it produce a functional outcome of enduring, not momentary, success? Tushaya is derived from the root word yasha, a word that means being or existence, and in this context, it indicates a substantial or actual wisdom, rather than empty words that sound insightful. But Tushaya is also linked to another root word, yashar, which we have talked about before. It means straight, right, and level. And in this context, it refers to a straightforward, moral, right, wisdom that produces sound results and reliable guidance. Tushaya is also a wisdom that liberates, and it is occasionally translated as deliverance. And since its primary trait is that this kind of wisdom has substance to it, this suggests a type of sound solidity that helps someone survive or thrive. Job 11:6 adds to this concept by stating that for sound wisdom, Tushaya, has two sides. So balance and complexity play a role in this kind of wisdom as well. That would be the solid kind of wisdom. Tushaya is three-dimensional. It has depth. Substance is the theme that is emphasized again and again, suggesting that Tushaya is the essence of a matter, the fundamental truth at something's heart. That is why this kind of rock-solid wisdom is the kind that results in competence. Because you cannot be competent at something without understanding its core, fundamental essence. The Bible repeatedly emphasizes that this kind of wisdom comes from God, the source. Proverbs 2:7 says, "He stores up sound wisdom Teshaya, for the upright. Job 12, verse 16 reiterates, with him are strength and sound wisdom, Teshaya. Isaiah 28, verse 29 emphasizes, this also comes from the Lord of armies, who has made his counsel wonderful and his wisdom, Teshaya, great. And finally, in reference to the personified wisdom of God, Proverbs 8, verse 14 says, Etzah, strategic advice, deliberation, planning, and purpose is mine. It belongs to me, along with solid, result-oriented solutions. Teshaya. Taken as a whole, this indicates that Teshaya is solid and practical, divinely given insight that leads to effective solutions and success. It encompasses everything on the practical side of wisdom, from sound counsel to effective strategies, as long as they produce enduring functional success. That is the measure that determines whether something qualifies as Teshaya or not. Chokmah is the ability or skill that is needed to probe and to know how to build. And Teshaya is the practical application of that wisdom and the tangible results. Together, they are the two sides of biblical wisdom. Chokmah is the mental capacity to probe and to judge rightly, to gain an understanding of deep matters, and then to perform skilled work in your life based on your insight. Having dug and uncovered that, Teshaya is the solid essence of things on which you can build equally solid strategies, ones that can be used to overcome challenges and achieve a desirable outcome. So, to sum up in as few words as possible, Dayat is about comprehending the things that you experience and gaining a priceless kind of knowledge that will serve you well as a result. Chokmah is a powerful, probing curiosity, plus the skill to do something artistic with the answers that you find. And Teshaya is the solid essence that you dig up and build on in order to have a life of substance with freedom, functional strategies, and successful results. Or to put it another way, Dayat is experience and awareness. Chokmah is curiosity and skill. And Teshaya is the substance you find and build on. And we have only just begun to scratch the surface of this toolbox, so I will leave you with a verse to give you a sneak peek at next week. Proverbs 8, verse 12 says, Wisdom, Chokmah, resides with prudent caution, an attitude of navigating with skepticism and cunning. And I encounter, secure, and acquire profound experience, Dayat, through discretion, the ability to shrewdly plan with foresight, purpose, and clever strategy. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, I would ask you to please help me build this podcast into a success by clicking the like and follow buttons, because that is what does the trick in making these things successful, and it doesn't cost anything to do. Plus, it lets me know which content you are enjoying so that I can make more of that kind of content. And I hope that you come back again next week. Until then, have a good week, my friends.